February. It is actually almost midway through the month because tomorrow is Valentine's Day and I have still not started tackling my February TBR. I read one book off my TBR during Relax and Readathon and I haven't touched the rest of my TBR at all. So now it's time to actually start tackling my TBR with a challenge. And for this month, I am going to use a random number spinner wheel to decide how many hours I'm going to read every single day. And I'm going to start this tomorrow on Valentine's Day and see how many hours it makes me read every single day for the next 7 days. We're going to do 6 spins. We're going to film for 7 days. On the 7th day, we'll just finish up all the books that it's inevitably made me start and not finish with random number challenges. I always have some reads that just are floating in the abyss, and we'll finish them on the 7th day. And then I will rest. Will I be able to finish my TBR? No, I very, very highly doubt it. But I am going to attempt to try and finish as many of these 6 books as humanly possible in 7 days. My TBR is a little bit big. It's a little bit large, but I'm very excited to read all the books. I'm very, very excited for every single book on the TBR. But we can't really talk about what I'm going to be reading until I know how many hours I'm going to be reading for tomorrow. I do have an idea of what book I will be reading tomorrow because I do have book club sprints. So most likely I'll be reading that. But it depends on how many hours it gives me, because if it gives me a lot, I'd like to space that out a little bit. So we'll see. The spinner wheel has numbers between 1 and 7. I'm reaching over here because this is where my mouse is. The spinner wheel is on my laptop behind you. And it has between 1 and, sorry, not 1 and 7. Did I say 1 and 7? I meant 1 and 8. 1 and 8, not 1 and 7. 1 and 8. And realistically, anything 4 and under is doable. Anything over that, I'm stretching myself. So let's see. I feel like I should put the coffee down before I do the spin, because what if I just get so excited and just spill coffee everywhere? That's probably a good idea. Let's spin the wheel and see what we get. Let's just do that. Okay. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh no. Oh no. No. We're starting with 8 hours. Okay, well, that's a start. That's a way to start the vlog, is with 8 hours of reading tomorrow and book club sprints. And there's other things we're doing for Valentine's Day. Tomorrow is going to be a very, very busy day. We are going to be using some audiobooks to help us. Yes, we are. And I'm not going to do 8 hours of my book club book. That's not going to happen. Absolutely not. That is for sure not happening. Why don't we split the 8 hours into 2 different books? I think that makes the most sense. So I have one already here from my TBR, because I did know I was going to be reading some of City of Stairs tomorrow by Robert Jackson Bennett, because I do have book club sprints tomorrow for Murder Amongst the Fairies, which is a joint book club with Leandra and I that we do with our patrons every 6 months. It's a bi-yearly book club that we do when we come together to read fantasy mystery genre blends. I'm not going to start with this because sprints tomorrow are not until 4:30 for me, 3:30 Eastern, 4:30 for me. So there's no reason to start with this book because I will be so far ahead of everybody else if I start with this. So I'm going to hold off and start this closer to sprints so that when I show up on sprints, I'm not vastly ahead of everybody else on the sprints. I may even wait for the sprints to start. We'll see how the day goes. But okay, my stack of TBR is here. What do I want to go with? I think I'm going to start with The Murder of Mr. Wickham, mostly because I am doing a couple of buddy reads with this book. I'm buddy reading it with a couple of friends, and I feel like we kind of said we'd start Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it is Saturday. So that makes sense. We didn't set a hard and fast date, but we did say generally sometime in the weekend we would start this buddy read. Although me reading 4 hours of this, I may get really ahead of my buddies. We'll see what happens. We'll see. We'll see. I'll talk to them after I finish, filming this, and we'll see how they feel. But I'm excited for both of these books. They're both mysteries, but one's like a cozy mystery retelling and one is a fantasy mystery genre blend. So both mysteries, very different vibes, but I'm excited to dive into both of these starting tomorrow morning for 8 hours. I'm going to put a chunk into both of them. We're going to make a dent tomorrow.
My perfect date starts in a small cafe. There's hearts everywhere cause it's Valentine's Day. We order up waffles, then share the whole plate. Sit by the window and start to debate. There's nobody else I'd rather spend my everyday with. I think it's sweet, she sometimes winks when she laughs. I like the way she dances barefoot in the grass. Yeah, we get along alright, cause I've been dating me my whole life. Afternoon sun starts to peek through the clouds. We take the back streets to avoid the crowds. Waltz over sidewalks and twirl in the breeze. She'll catch me if I get weak in the knees. There's nobody else I'd rather.
So it has already been quite a busy morning. We decorated for Valentine's Day. We went outside for a bit, and I have already read for 4 hours of my 8 hours of reading. The first hour I read The Murder of Mr. Wickham by Claudia Gray. I got 66 pages into this, and I have DNF'd this. Not because it's not a good book. I think it actually is. I can actually say many good things about the 66 pages I've read. I just don't like this type of book. And I went into this thinking it was one thing and found out it was not that thing. And that threw me off, honestly. So this is like a secluded setting murder mystery where Jane Austen's characters arrive at Emma and Mr. Knightley's house for a month-long visit. And then Mr. Wickham shows up, someone murders Mr. Wickham, and we have to solve the murder of Mr. Wickham, hence the title. And I have not even gotten to the murder yet at 66 pages. I'm not mad at that. I do tend to like my mysteries kind of started a little bit faster in a cozy murder mystery, but that's not a big deal. That's not the reason I'm DNFing. That's not it. So at the beginning, we see the author write an author's note to us saying how they are keeping this book historically accurate to Jane Austen's books and the timeline of Jane Austen's books to the best of their ability. And that was immediately when I went, is this historical? And it is. It is historical. And I thought this was a modern day retelling of Jane Austen's characters with a murder mystery, cozy mystery vibe. It is not that. It is set in the 1800s. And the author has done a very good job of making it feel even in the same style as a Jane Austen novel. However, if I'm going to read a book that feels like it was written in the 1800s, I would rather just read the classics. And honestly, I'm not a big classics reader at this point anyway. So there's that as well. I'm not a big historical fiction reader. Had I known this was historical fiction, I probably wouldn't have even picked it up. And I should have known. It's very easy to know that. I just didn't do enough research, or I missed that tidbit of information, or maybe I knew it at one point and I forgot. I'm not sure. When I looked at the bottom of Goodreads, it's literally listed as mystery, historical fiction. That's the next category that it is. I should have noticed. My bad. This is completely all my fault. But it's set in the 1800s. It feels very much like it's written in the 1800s. And I actually think that is a good thing if that's what you like. I think that's actually a tribute to the author and the historical accuracy to which they're putting into this book with the historical knowledge of these characters and the love that people have for these characters. I think that's a good thing, but for me, it's not a good thing. I also think the author did a really good job of explaining who all the characters are, because obviously not everyone has read every single Jane Austen, I almost said Jane Eyre, Jane Austen novel, and not everybody knows all the characters, how they're connected through marriages, through storylines, etc., etc. And they have a really good kind of outline at the beginning while all the people are like getting ready to come to this party, explaining kind of the backstory you need for each character. And I found that really helpful. I have not read every single one of the books that we are referencing. And even the ones I have read, it has been a hot minute since I've read them. So even the little like overview kind of helped jog my memory at certain books that maybe it's been longer since I've read and my brain has kind of like filtered out some of that information. So I actually think there was a lot about this that was great. So I don't want to deter people from picking this up because I think if you like cozy mystery, if you like historical fiction, if you like a historical vibe, this would be for you. I just thought it was modern day set. And immediately the writing style I knew was not going to work. And I gave it a valiant effort of 66 pages, but I just couldn't do it anymore. So I decided, you know what? Let's just put this aside and just go, it's just not a book for me. Sometimes books are just not for you. There's nothing wrong with the book. It's just not for you. And in this case, that's exactly what I'm saying about The Murder of Mr. Wickham. Then I decided to pivot to a book that I knew was going to work for me because I didn't want to come here with like 2 negative reviews. Not that this is really negative. I actually have some really good things to say about this one. It's just not a book for me. I've said it. So I decided to pick up Collide by Bal Cabra. This book is the first in a series, but I've already read the second in the series. During my Goodreads Choice videos in December, I read Spiral and gave it 5 stars with my whole chest. And I just knew that I was going to love this book because I loved that book. It's also an ice hockey romance, so like, come on, it's me. It's an ice hockey romance. Of course, I'm going to love this. Now, I will say, it did take me a second to settle into this story. It took me a second. It took me probably about 100 pages to actually fully like love this story as much as I am loving it right now. But I think that's because I was comparing it to Spiral. And this is not as good as Spiral. The author came a long way from writing the first book to the second book. I think this is a debut, and obviously the second book is not a debut because this is the debut. And the author really came a long way in that time. And I much preferred Spiral to this book at the beginning. And I was comparing them. And I still think I'm always going to prefer Spiral to this, but I'm a lot more bought into this story now that I've given it, how far am I? 181 pages. I'm just about to start chapter 25. Like now I'm sold. I'm sold on Aiden and Summer. I also think that because I know Aiden and Summer from Spiral and they are older in Spiral, I was a bit like taken aback by the youngness of this book. They are in college in this book. In the other book, they are like graduated from college and in the NHL. And we follow Eli, who we do see glimpses of Eli in this book, not much though. But we also see glimpses of Aiden in that book, and him and Eli are in the NHL at that point. So they're a bit more grown. They're a bit more seasoned, you know? So seeing them a bit more immature threw me off. And I think that's also a problem because I read it out of order. And normally I say that's okay with contemporary romance. And I'm actually kind of glad I did because I now know how great Spiral is. So I don't know. I'm trying to explain what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying this is bad. This is easily sitting at a 4-star, but like Spiral was a 5-star. And I'm just like trying to explain what I'm trying to explain. There you go. There's a saying. Anyway, we're meeting Aiden and Summer. Summer is doing a research project for her thesis on like athlete balances in their lives, if that makes sense. I'm not explaining that well because I don't really fully understand what her thesis is on, but it's about balance in athletes. She needs an athlete to follow, to do things with her research. Aiden is the captain of the hockey team for the college. He's in his senior year. He's the captain. The team screws up. And Aiden takes the fall. He takes the fall, and his punishment is to do a bunch of charity work with a children's hockey team and also to work with Summer on her project. She does not want to work with a hockey star. Her father was a hockey star, and she has kind of a tumultuous relationship with her father, and she just wants to stay away from hockey, but she's forced to work with Aiden, the hockey star. And their banter is good. I will say Summer is a bit stressed. She's a stressed out girly, which I can relate to. That's not a bad thing. I love Summer. I understand her, but she is stressed and she needs to relax. I'm sure Aiden is about to help her relax. You know what I'm saying? But she needs to relax a little bit. I think she has a little bit of maybe anxiety. I don't know necessarily if that's exactly what it is, but I think it might be because she really feels like she needs to be in control of everything around her and have like a really tight schedule and plan. And as someone with anxiety, like, can relate to her. So she's a little bit snappy. She's a little bit snarky sometimes. She's a little bit, gets her back up real easy with Aiden. Because A, she doesn't want to work with a hockey player because of her past trauma, and B, sometimes he does not fall into the schedule to which she needs him to, and he's driving her crazy. And also, she doesn't want to like him, but she likes him. So she's a little prickly sometimes. But you know what? I love her. I freaking adore her, honestly. So don't take that as a bad critique, because I like Summer a lot. And they are finally at the point where they're like, we can at least be friends with benefits. We're just about to enter that. Now, I will say this is not going to end well. I mean, it's a romance book, so there is going to be a happily ever after. It will end well at some point. But this boy is down bad for this girl. So he does not want to be friends with benefits with her. He wants the whole thing. He wants the picket fence with this girl. Like, he is down bad. He's down bad at this point. And she is too. She's just not ready to admit it for various reasons. She has to go on her own journey and she's not quite there yet. But this boy's down bad for her. And I love a golden retriever kind of guy. I would not necessarily say Aiden is necessarily a golden retriever, but he has qualities. He has qualities of that. So at this point, I'm actually really excited. I'm excited to see where we go from this point on and see their relationship actually develop as they actually have like a relationship, even if it's a friends with benefits turning into more, probably having a third act conflict around that, around her like coming to terms with her feelings, all that stuff. But for the next 4 hours, I'm not going to be reading Collide because we are about to head out to go get free hot chocolate at the park. Because of Valentine's Day, they're doing a bunch of things at our local park, and one of them being free hot chocolate. I am heading there next because sounds like a fun time. Sounds like a fun family time. So we're all going to get in the car. We're going to head over there. I'll get some footage of that, but a lot of my family doesn't like to be on camera, so it'll just be bits and bobs. And then I have book club sprints for City of Stairs by Robert Jackson Bennett. So I am going to switch vibes from the hockey romance to the fantasy murder mystery. Murder mystery? I think that's what this is. It's a fantasy mystery, but I think it's a murder mystery. I'm pretty sure somebody dies. And I'm going to switch gears into that for the rest of these 4 hours. And I really, really hope to like this book because I feel like with the success of The Tainted Cup, Robert Jackson Bennett is like this really high respected author in the book community, like really, really hyped. And I really want to understand the hype. And I know the hype is mostly around The Tainted Cup, but I want to have a good experience with my first ever Robert Jackson Bennett.
Spend my everyday with. She doesn't mind that I don't know how to cook. She likes the way I keep my nightstand filled up with books. And I think it's sweet. She sometimes winks when she laughs. I like the way she dances barefoot in the grass. Yeah, we get along alright. 'Cause I've been dating me my whole life.
So last night on sprints for book club, I got so close to finishing my 8 hours. So once sprints wrapped up, I had an hour and 14 minutes left. And I did that as I got ready for bed. And I did finish, but it was very late and it was much too late to come chat to you because I was a zombie human at that point. But I did get to page, hold on, this doesn't have a page number on it. I got to page 179, the start of the next chapter. The chapters don't have chapter numbers, so I can't tell you what chapter I'm on. I have no idea. It's What History Tells You is what it's called. But anyway, I got to the end of that chapter with like 14 seconds left. on my timer. So I just decided to end it there and call it a night. And I am loving this book. I'm loving this. If you want a very commentary heavy book, you are going to adore City of Stairs. And you know I love a good commentary in my fantasy novels, and this is giving it to me in spades. So in this book, we follow Shara, who is, well, okay, let me start over, because we do follow Shara, but there's a lot of history that we're building on in this book that is important. And the fact that this book is set in a city called Bulakov, and Bulakov was once ruled by divine gods. And many, many years ago, like centuries ago, those gods were killed by the people of Shara's land, and they conquered this land. And they have suppressed the history of this land from the people to which are indigenous to the land, the Bulakovian people. So it is illegal for them to learn about the history of their deceased divinities. It is illegal for them to put up anything of like, you know, symbols of those divinities. And that is very important because we start off in this like judge, jury, lawyer courtroom. That's the word I'm looking for. We start off in this courtroom for someone who's being like sentenced for putting up a sign that is connected to the divinities. And they end up getting acquitted mostly because this ambassador is murdered at the time of this sentencing. And the judge and everybody starts to find out, the ambassadors, everybody starts to find out that this historian who has come here as an ambassador to study the history, even though the own people are not allowed to know the history. So there's a lot of people who are like indigenous to this land not loving this man because he's allowed to read our history, but we're not allowed to read our history. That seems corrupt. Yes, it does. So anyway, he is murdered. And Shara is another one from the conquering land. She is kind of a spy, honestly. She's kind of a spy. She's coming in. She's very close to this man who has been murdered. And she is going to solve his murder and also detangle the political things that definitely led to this murder. And there is so much politics, there's so much commentary around colonization, around corrupt governments. I think we might eventually need to like overturn a system. Yes, please. You know I love to overturn a system. Shara has a secretary named Sigrud. And Sigrud truly is the shining star to this book. He is a secondary character. He is not the main character in any way. You don't actually see Sigrud that much, but every time you see Sigrud, you're like, oh yes, Sigrud. Sigrud is a giant. And also his people are quite treated poorly. And there's a lot of assumptions made around his ancestry. And people look down on Sigrud because of where he comes from. But Shara is investigating this. She is seeing corruption left, right, and center. We're learning about the divinities that once existed, and that system was corrupt in and of itself. But the divinities created this city, and this city is really fascinating. It kind of like operates outside of physics and science because it was created by divinities. And also when the divinities were killed, things they made stopped working. So it's very, very complex, this story. This story is extremely complex, and I feel like I'm not even able to tell you all of what's going on in this book, but there's so much going on. It is so steeped in commentary. There's so much. I think it reminds me the most of God Killer, to be honest, especially as we learn more and more about the divinities. And obviously in God Killer, we have a land that is trying to take itself back from the gods. It's illegal to, you know, worship the gods. And then the gods start to fight back and there's a civil war, and it's a whole thing. I feel like we have something similar going on here. Maybe after, because obviously the divinities are killed already, but the suppression of the religion, but also we see what happens when you suppress something. We see people going in the other extreme into fanaticism. So it's so layered. It's so layered. It's so good. I will say the mystery in this is not the shining star for me. I am mostly here for the fantasy elements or the political elements, which could technically be part of the mystery. But like overall, the mystery for me is definitely the secondary plot point. I think it just depends on what kind of reader you are. We actually discussed this on the book club last night because obviously Leandra is more of a mystery reader. I'm more of a fantasy reader. And she was like, no, there's lots of mystery. And I was like, no, I'm here for the fantasy. So I think it just depends on what kind of like reader you are. But I'm really excited to dive back into this later. But first, we need to see how many hours I'm going to be reading for today. And then we'll go from there. So I have the spinner wheel up on my computer as I do. And let me, hold on, I gotta get it to pull up. It was pulled up, but now it's being a little bit of a pain and not wanting to work. What is going on? Okay, there we go. There we go. Let me press the spinner wheel. I really hope for less than 8 hours today. I really, 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 really do. It looks like I'm gonna get less. 3? 2. Oh, it just stuck into the 2. Okay, 2 hours. That's much less than yesterday. So I actually think I'm going to take a break from City of Stairs, mostly because I'm a little bit ahead of the book club at this point, and I kind of just want something a little bit, easier to read. And I think I'm closer to finishing Collide than I am to finishing this book. Well, I'm definitely closer to finishing Collide. Let's turn it around. So I think I'm going to go back into my ice hockey romance today for these 2 hours. I also have a couple of things that I meant to do yesterday on Valentine's Day. And obviously with how busy the day was, I didn't get to those fun activities that I had planned. So I did plan to make Valentine's cupcakes, didn't get to that. I had a Valentine's craft that I got for myself, and I didn't get to that either. So I do think I'm going to try and do both of those today while I read Collide. The nice thing with Collide is I can do this easier on audio. This one is more of an immersion read. I did find it a little bit more difficult to just go on audio for this. So I think today is going to be mostly like an audio, just listening to Collide while doing some fun activities and having a little bit of an easier reading day than yesterday.
I don't know how to cook. She likes the way I keep my nightstand filled up with books, and I think it's sweet. She sometimes winks when she laughs. I like the way she dances barefoot in the grass. Yeah, we get along alright, 'cause I've been dating me my whole life.
Of a contemporary romance definitely flies by. I finished that very, very quickly. And I am now on page 292 and at the end of chapter 41. I have loved these two since they've gotten together. Even as friends with benefits, I have really enjoyed their story. I really do like Aiden and Summer. And I just love their love story, honestly. He is so sure about her. He is 100% in, and he is just waiting for her to be ready for this. And she's not ready. She's not ready at the start. She needs to build some walls, or not build the walls. She needs to take the walls down that she has built over the years to protect herself due to past instances in her life, family instances, things that have kept her from moving forward in a relationship, and psychological trauma and baggage that she's carried. She needs to work through all that. And now she has, and they're together, and I love them so much. And I'm really, 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 really hoping that we get enough tomorrow to finish off this book. I'm so, so close. And I really, really hope that we get enough to finish this book. I kind of want to finish it today, but I'm done my 2 hours, and honestly, if I'm being responsible, I don't continue reading today because I do have a significant amount of editing that I need to do. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to listen to the timer because the timer may not be nice other days. It may give me like another 8-hour day. So I'm going to take the opportunity to edit. I need to edit the Weekend at Timmy's announcement. So that is like top of my list. But I do want to do a spin for tomorrow before I start editing to see how much I'm going to have to like read tomorrow. And also, like, fingers crossed we can finish Collide at least and maybe get back into City of Stairs. So let's do our spin and see what happens. It's spinning, it's spinning. Oh no, I don't want a 1. I need stay in the 2, stay in the 2, stay in the 2. Okay, it stayed in the 2. I needed it to stay in the 2 because I need like an hour and a half to finish this book. So an hour would not have been enough, and I wanted enough. So we're doing another 2-hour day tomorrow. That's okay, because I did want to finish Collide, and that will give me enough time to finish Collide. And then I'll dip into City of Stairs just for a tiny, tiny bit. I'm going to go get some editing done. I still need to do my Valentine's craft that I mentioned earlier. So that's going to be my afternoon. It's just editing with maybe like a little mental break from the editing to do some crafting. Reading was knocked out pretty quickly today. I finished Collide, and then I ended up reading 1 chapter of City of Stairs. The one thing about City of Stairs that I forgot to mention is the chapters are so long. The chapter I read was like 60 minutes long regular speed. They are hefty chapters. Very, very hefty. No chapter numbers either. And I'm like, could we get a chapter number for when I'm on audio and need to get back in? But you know what? I'm still really enjoying this book, and I'm excited to dive more into this tomorrow with whatever we get on the spinner. But let's talk about Collide, since that's the book like I actually read for most of the 2 hours. I mean, I'm only a chapter further in this. So this one, I am going to give 4 stars. I'm going to give it 4 stars. I'm glad I read Spiral first, honestly, because I'm not sure if this would have been enough to have made me go on and read Spiral. Even though Spiral turned out to be like one of my favorite romances of last year. I think this being a college romance, it was a little bit immature at times, where Spiral, they're grown-ups, they're in the NHL at that point, and this was a bit more immature. Also, I do think we were trying to like kind of make it Icebreaker-esque. There are some obvious kind of lineups to some of the stories in Icebreaker, and I don't necessarily know if trying to force that kind of worked. I don't know if it was like meant to be that way. It just kind of seemed that way to me as someone who has read Icebreaker. Obviously, a college hockey romance is going to feel like that, but there were other things in that made me feel that way as well. We have someone who is attached to Summer in an academical sense, and he is very jealous. He's trying to bring her down. Very much an Aaron character that you see in Icebreaker. It's not as prevalent as it was in Icebreaker, which is why I haven't mentioned it up till now. But it does kind of take the same spot. We have kind of a, you know, friends with benefits turned to lovers situation. There are definitely some overlaps, for sure. And I just love Icebreaker so much that like I feel like this wasn't as strong for me. And again, I love Spiral so much. So I was comparing it in both senses. And this one always came out a little bit lower than the other two. However, I've already read the sequel and I freaking love the sequel. There's a 3rd book in this series out. I am going to read that one. Like, do not worry. Because this was still a 4-star book. It wasn't a bad book. I just was comparing it to later in the series. And that's kind of my fault for reading it out of order. But I'm kind of glad I did, because again, I don't know if this would have caught me enough to continue. Who knows? I can't say for sure, but that's kind of like my thought process on this book. One thing I want to shout out, as I always do when it happens, is that this does not have a 3rd act breakup. We'd love to see it. We do have a 3rd act conflict, but it is external. with external factors that are going on around our characters that does have to do with our characters, but doesn't have to do with the romance of our characters. So we loved to see that in this book. 4 stars. If you like hockey romance, I'd pick it up. I really would. And I would definitely pick up Spiral. Like, even if you don't love this one when you pick this up, please continue on to Spiral, because Spiral is like absolutely amazing. So I have my laptop here. I'm going to grab it, and we are going to see what the spinner wheel has in store for tomorrow. We only had 2 hours today. We only had 2 hours yesterday. So like, is it going to stay small? Is it going to be big? I kind of would like a little more than 2 hours, but I don't want to go like back up to like 8. So anyway, let's just see what the spinner wheel has in store. What are we going to get? Oh no. Oh, okay. Just keep going. A 7. That's a little bit bigger than I wanted. That's a little bit bigger than I wanted. I'm not going to lie for you. I'm not going to lie, friends. That was a little bigger than I wanted. What I might do, because I did find the 8-hour day quite taxing. Honestly, it was a lot of reading all in one day, and 7 is really basically the same. And it's still kind of early today since I only had to read for 2 hours. I may read 1 or 2 more hours today and then like finish up the 7 hours tomorrow. I know that's not quite the challenge, but I might do that. I might do like 1 more hour today and then the rest tomorrow. And I'm going to work on City of Stairs. Can I finish City of Stairs in 7 hours? I suspect that I can. I suspect that I absolutely can. I'm not sure. I didn't look at how much I had left on the audiobook, but there's definitely a possibility that I can finish this in 7 hours. One other thing that I want to do today is work on my puzzle a little bit. I am going to a puzzle swap this weekend, and I really want to finish this puzzle in order to take it to the puzzle swap. It's not my favorite. I also just like don't keep puzzles. I usually donate them when I'm done with them. And I want to take 3 puzzles to the puzzle swap. I have 2 that I have finished and not donated in order to take to the swap. So I'm really hoping to finish this one before the weekend. Can I do that? We're going to cross our fingers. I have a few days. It is possible. So I think some of today and tomorrow, as I'm reading City of Stairs, both times, will be me listening to this while I puzzle. I was going to immersion read this book, and I think I will do most of this on immersion read, but I do want to puzzle. And now that I'm like set into the book and I have a really good understanding of the world, I think I could just listen to this and puzzle for a little bit. So I may do that a little bit today as well, and tomorrow as I like complete City of Stairs. I have finished City of Stairs. I still have an hour and a half left on my 7 hours of reading, but I've at least finished a book. And I just feel like at this point, my brain needs a break. So I'm going to give my update on City of Stairs, and I'm going to read the rest of that tonight as I like get ready for bed. And then we'll like dive into more of the book that I'm about to start tomorrow with whatever the spinner wheel says in like 2 minutes when we spin it. because I just know by the time I'm done this hour and a half, which will be inevitably like 9 or 10 p.m., because I'm about to have dinner, I'm going to do a few other things and just, again, give my brain a little bit of a break before I do that reading. I will not want to come be on camera because I will be cozy and probably in bed. I will probably be reading in bed. So we're going to do the update now. And I am a bit mentally fatigued from this book, just because this book is so dense, not because it's not fantastic. I gave it 4 stars, but it is dense in its world building, especially as we get to know more and more and more about the divinities and the past government that was tied to the divinities and the religion that was tied to the divinities. You're given so much information. This book is so small. The audiobook is like 18 hours. You're given just so much. And you have to like pull it all together and make it make sense. And your brain is like, that's a lot. It's a lot of information learning about each divinity and what they did and what happened to them and why this happened and who killed who. And it's a lot of history. It's a lot. And you're taking it all in. And that's not a bad thing. I do love a dense book. Again, 4 stars. I really liked it. Lots of commentary. There's a lot going on. But my brain is now like a bit tired from reading so much of it in such a small period of time. I would probably take more time with this book if you were going to pick it up. I'm really excited to go into the next book though. I think I'm going to try and pick up the next book in not March, but April. I think we're going to like continue to buddy read this as a group because a lot of us are loving this book so much and really enjoying this genre blend. As we've discussed this, I don't normally discuss genre blends here because there are just so many and there's so many ways to do a genre blend. But since we're doing it for the book club, we have been discussing how this is a genre blend. And I think no matter what kind of reader you are, if you're a mystery reader, you're going to read this more as a mystery. If you're a like political fantasy reader, which is what I am, I read this more as a political fantasy. It really reads like a political fantasy. And I think Robert Jackson Bennett did a really great job of taking what is in both genres and using those elements versus picking this element from this genre and this element from this genre and now putting it in a book and you have like elements kind of like piecemealed together from each genre. You found the common denominators and put them into one book. And I really felt like that was very strong and really well done. It makes me want to read more of Robert Jackson Bennett's books after I finish this series. I'm going to finish this series first before I go into any other. We really look at history in this book. Shara, at her heart, is a historian. She's almost like an archaeologist through this book. She wants to unearth the history while she tries to solve this murder and also peel back the layers of political corruption that maybe inevitably led to the murder. And the whole time you are just like fascinated by the politics, fascinated by the history, fascinated by how history can be silenced and also how history can be spun for corrupt purposes for both nations. And it's really interesting watching Shara kind of find the truth. And then what is she going to do with it? Like, what do you do once you discover the truth? How do you let everybody know the truth? What do you do? And she has to figure that out as well. I think there was one moment at the end of this book where it got a little silly. There was a little bit of silly things happening in the midst of what was a very intense scene. It got silly and I'm not really sure why it had to do that. But it did, but only for a couple of pages. And then after that, it got like really heartwarming. And there was actually like a moment where I was like, okay, this is like pulling at the heartstrings for a little while there at the very end. So I went on a lot of different emotions while reading this book. And overall, it was a really strong introduction to a brand new author that I do expect to become an author I read quite a bit from, maybe even quite a bit from this year. I'm at least going to read this entire series this year, but I may dive into more. Now, I do have an hour and a half left of my 7 hours, and I do know what book I want to go into next. I'm having a great ride, and I want to continue that great ride with an author that is like just a favorite, one of my absolute favorite authors. So I've decided to go into Alone with You in the Ether by Olivia Blake next. You know, I love an Olivia Blake book. You know it. This is going to be fantastic for me. And I am very, 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 very excited to dive in. So this is what I'm going to read next. I have never given an Olivia Blake less than 3 stars. And of the newer things that have come out, I really have never given less than a 4. The only thing I've ever given a 3 is One for My Enemy. However, I do think this might be like published around the same time. So, you know, it might not be my favorite, but it could be my favorite. We don't know yet. But I just love Olivia Blake's writing style. Like the way Olivia Blake crafts a sentence, chef's kiss. So I'm going to read this for another hour and a half tonight. And then I just want to see, like I said, it'll be late. I just want to know what I'm going to be dealing with tomorrow. So let's spin the spinner wheel. I have it up on my laptop right over there. So let's just give it a spin and see what's going on. Okay. I'm kind of hoping for less than 7. I'd really like a middling number, like a 4. Like a 4. We're not going to get that. We're going to get a 1. Oh, for a second, I thought that was going to be an 8. For a second, I thought that was going to be an 8. And I was like, no, not again. Not again. Honestly, 1, that's not even that good either. It's like so small. Okay. Why does this spinner wheel not want to give like 4s and 5s? It wants to give me either like the most or the least. We've had 8, 2, 2, 7, 1. Where are the 4s and the 5s? Where is the middle ground? Not here. Not at all. So since that's such a small number, I think what I'll do is I'll read an hour and a half today. I'll wake up, I'll read an hour in the morning, and then we'll chat together at that time. I'm going to go have dinner. I'm going to go take a little bit of a break from reading. Just a little bit of a break. I'm also going to make these little breakfast quiches that I found on TikTok. I find so many recipes on TikTok that I always save and I want to try. And this one I want to try for like some breakfast prep this week. I don't like to make a warm breakfast in the morning. I need breakfast to be like reheat or just eat right away. Like I need breakfast to be prepped. I am not someone who can like wake up and make a warm breakfast like first thing in the morning. That's too much work for me. So I decided to make those today because I would like to have one tomorrow morning for breakfast. Honestly, that's really the reasoning. So I think I'm going to make dinner. I'm going to have dinner. I may watch an episode of The Traitors. I am currently caught up on the US Traitors, but I'm working my way through the first season, which I believe is the only season of Traitors Ireland. I am 2 episodes in. I might watch a 3rd episode. And then I think we'll do the breakfast prep and then I'll dive back into Alone with You in the Ether.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3. If you go slow, 'cause there's some things I've never told you. Why, I don't know. I guess I've never been as bold as you. You put a little beat in my heart and a little light in my dark. And now it's my turn, but where do I start? You got me hooked in like an upbeat chorus. Got me on my knees begging for it. You got my whole heart screaming it. And you got the whole dance floor feeling it. You caught me off guard with your rhythm so smooth. Gotta take it all in, I'm in awe of you. Girl, I can't stop listening. No, I'll never get enough, won't you play it again? Well, maybe it don't show.
So I'm not gonna lie, you didn't see me yesterday. I'm really glad I only had to read for an hour yesterday because family things happened. People showed up at my house. It got a little bit hectic. And I really just didn't pick up a camera. I just focused on spending time with my family, and that was pretty much all I did. I ended up only doing my reading in bed at the end of the night. And I technically still have 11 minutes left of that hour. I didn't even fully complete it. I could have, but this doesn't have chapters. It doesn't have any chapters. It just has part 1, part 2, right up to part 6. And part 2 is what I got to the end of. Part 2 was like 2 hours long. I had broken it up throughout the day before and this day to complete it. And I just didn't feel like starting part 3. I really, really didn't. Not because I'm not loving this book. I am really liking this book. It's Olivia Blake. I knew I would, but I just didn't feel up to reading until a good stopping point. The parts do have like, you know, breaks with little like asterisks or what have you, but I didn't know how long it would be until I could find a good, convenient place to stop. And I figured today I would just add 11 minutes and really dive into part 3 in its entirety, depending on how much I get. And realistically, no matter what happens with this spinner, my goal is to finish this today. This is going to be the last day for this vlog. We may close it out tomorrow, but I need to finish this vlog in order to get it out. And this needs to be finished in this video. So whatever happens with the spinner wheel, even if I can't finish Alone with You in the Ether, I'll probably just read past whatever time I get and finish this book. If I get more than that, I will start another TBR book and we'll see where we're at. Maybe I will like quickly try to finish that. We'll just see how much timer the spinner wheel gives us, and not how much timer, how much time the spinner wheel gives us, and we'll go from there. But with this book, I actually went and looked up when it was written because I was seeing so many similarities to the Atlas 6. At the end of the day, Olivia Blake has a very unique writing style. When you read an Olivia Blake, you know you're reading an Olivia Blake book. It is the reason I love her writing so, so much. And I just love the uniqueness of it and the prose of it and the internal monologues you get with an Olivia Blake book. They get me every single time. But this felt like reading the Atlas 6. Not necessarily in plot, as there is no magic in this book, and there is magic in the Atlas 6. However, the plot of an Olivia Blake book is the backseat. It's not the main focus. The characters, their internal monologues, their development, that's why you're here. And these characters feel like they were plucked from the Atlas 6, or that the Atlas 6 was plucked from this, honestly. And I looked it up, and they both came out in 2020. Both of them were self-published in 2020. And I think that is very, very obvious. You can see the influences in the characters between this and the Atlas 6. I feel like Reagan and Aldo are almost a combination of Libby, Nico, and Gabe. They are those 3 characters and how they act, how they correspond in like a compilation of 2 people. And I'm really liking that because I love the Atlas 6. So I'm really liking this story. We find Reagan, she is a docent at an art museum, and we find her doing tours as part of being a docent. Aldo, who is a TA at a university, he's working on like his master's, he's helping to teach, and he is quite brilliant. Very, very brilliant in mathematics. He likes to work sometimes at the museum because the background noise, it's just the right place. And that's how they meet. They meet at this museum. And Aldo is fascinated by Reagan, and Reagan is fascinated by Aldo. Aldo is obsessed with bees and also just how math is found in nature, and really likes hexagons because of the bees. I'm not going to explain that all. The book explains it all. So he says, I would like to have 6 conversations with you. Every conversation, I'll learn something about you. And at the end of the conversation, I'll tell you what I've learned and you tell me what you've learned. And then our relationship will be over. However, they are sparking feelings and they just got to the end of the 6th conversation. So I'm wondering how they're going to go forward from here, honestly. But the internal dialogue is chef's kiss, as I expect. That is why I come to an Olivia Blake book. I am here for the crazy meanderings of someone's head. Like, that is why I'm here. And it really does feel like I'm reading almost a subsect of the internal monologues of the Atlas 6, just with pulling out the magic. We even have a lot of talk of the multiverse in this book, which is something we dive into in the Atlas 6. So it's really not surprising to me that these were written at the exact same time. I would, however, appreciate a chapter. I have read 2 books now where the chapters are either non-existent and we just have parts that are like 2 hours long, or really, really long chapters in City of Stairs. Like some of those chapters were an hour long. So I would love a book with a short chapter after this. I know we're not doing probably another book in this vlog. If we do, we're just going to start it and I'll finish it in another vlog. But I think I'm literally going to pick a book just because it has short chapters at this point. Like that's all I want in life. So I have the spinner wheel up on my computer as we have been doing. Let's hit it. I think I need about 4 hours to finish this book. I think. Oh, okay. I think the spinner wheel heard me. It knew. It heard me. It heard me say that I needed 4 hours and it gave me 3. 3 is perfect. 3 is fine because like I said, even if I need a little bit longer, I'm going to finish this book today. Even if I need a little bit more than the 3 hours, I'm just going to keep reading and finish this out so that you can have my whole thoughts on this book in this one vlog. 3 hours. That is actually perfect. The spinner wheel has not always been kind to me during this vlog, but every once in a while, it's given me a good number. Also, this is the closest to a middling number we've got this entire time. It's either like read 1,000 hours or read 1 hour. So this is a perfectly reasonable number.
Oh, but I'm on pins and needles for you. And girl, you ought to know, no one makes my jaw hit the floor like you do. You put a little beat in my heart and a little light in my dark.
So I'm going to be real honest. It's been 3 days since I picked up a camera. I did finish my 3 hours of reading on the day that I was supposed to do it. But it was like 10 o'clock at night when I finished. I finished Alone with You in the Ether with 5 minutes left on the 3 hours. So I did start Enchantra, but like barely. You will see that in another vlog. But I did finish Alone with You in the Ether, but I was so tired and I really wanted to be articulate. So I was like, I will vlog this the next day. The next day was my puzzle swap. I did not pick up a camera, not at all. Just went out, had a good time with some friends, did not think to pick up a camera. The next day we had a crazy snowstorm, 30 centimeters of snow, and I decided to just have a snow day and stay in my pajamas. Again, did not pick up a camera. So now we are a couple of days later and I am editing this vlog and I realized I never closed it out and I never did pick up a camera and tell you my final thoughts on Alone with You in the Ether. So we're going to do that right now. We're going to do that right now. I felt like this book was very strong for an early Olivia Blake book. I'm going to give it a 4 star. It's not my favorite of hers. Her more newer releases are definitely my favorite, but you can really see how this was written at the same time as the Atlas 6. And I love the Atlas 6 and I loved this about equally. I gave the first book in Atlas 6 4 stars as well, so they're comparable in my mind. I do think that this got a bit real for me in part 6. Part 6 is the final part of this book, and actually part 5 and part 6 got a bit real for me. I related to both of these characters, not fully, but I could see things that I have said to myself in the internal monologues of our two characters. In this love story, we have Regan, who is dealing with a mood disorder and is going through changes in medication, whether she wants to be on medication, and she's really going through it mentally at times. And she's going through it mentally while falling in love. And she is grappling with the idea of, will this person stick it out when I'm having a bad mental health day? Will you always love my brain when my brain is broken? And I have said the words, my brain is broken, to myself, which is probably not a good thing to say to yourself. Like, I understand that, but I think it's a normal thought for someone who's dealing with mental health. And when that was actually written in the book, I went, ooh, okay, can relate to her in this moment. Absolutely can. And I think it's normal, maybe for all people with mental health, but I think definitely for women, to wonder who's going to stick around when I'm not the, perky person that you're used to. Who's going to stick around? Who's going to be okay with all the facets of me? And what an interesting conversation, what an interesting commentary we go to into this book. And then we have Aldo, who loves Regan, absolutely loves her, but has taken a back seat in the relationship and has slightly lost himself in this relationship. and needs to figure out how to make this relationship equal again after giving so much of himself to it. And I think a lot of people who have been in a relationship of any kind, romantic or not, can relate to a moment where you have thrown yourself into it so fully, and then months and months or years later, you are realizing you maybe didn't protect yourself as well as you should, even though it's a good relationship, or it is a relationship you still want. You still need to have balance in any relationship you're in. And when that balance is lost and you feel lost, how do you get that back? And I think that was something I definitely related to. And I think it's something a lot of people can relate to. So again, Olivia Blake, a character study in people. That is what you're going to get when you pick up an Olivia Blake book. You are going to get a character study in the human emotion, maybe to an extreme sense. Again, characters are not necessarily likable. This relationship is not necessarily healthy, at least not at all times. But you are going to get a character study in the human condition when you open up an Olivia Blake book. And it's why I will always come back. It's why I will read every single book Olivia Blake ever writes. I have one left, Girl Dinner, the most recent release, and I will be completely caught up. But that is the end of tackling Timmies for the month of February. I have tackled almost my entire TBR. I'm in the middle of Enchantra. By in the middle, I'm one chapter in, but I will finish that in another vlog. The Night Circus is rolling over into next month because I did lose the audiobook. But other than that, I finished my whole TBR. And I hope you enjoyed watching the spinner wheel. Give me some very random times into how much I should read my TBR every single day. If you like seeing me tackle my TBR every month with a challenge, make sure you hit subscribe. I already have next month's challenge planned, and I'm going to get to it a lot earlier in the month. I felt like I cut this one a little bit close, doing it so late in the month. So I'm going to be going into that challenge in like about a week. I think I'm going to do it like the first week of March. So you're going to see a new challenge video of March's TBR, which if you haven't seen Timmy's yet, it's the video out before this. And whoo, my TBR is large. My TBR is large and in charge for next month. So you're going to want to see that. If you made it all the way to the end of the video but don't have anything to say down in the comments, but want to let me know you were here, want to leave me a comment, leave me a bumblebee for Alone With You in the Ether. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.